Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl Podcast, a 3-time award-winning show that aims to motivate and inspire you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media, especially in relation to adventure and physical challenges. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. If you're passionate about adventure, challenge and learning from women who have overcome obstacles and achieved remarkable things, then this is the podcast for you. Every Tuesday at 7 a.m, new episodes go live featuring incredible women who share their stories, insights and tips to help you achieve your dreams and goals. You can support the Tough Girl mission by signing up as a patron. Visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Keep listening until the very end as I share more information about what's going on with me with Tough Girl Challenges, give shout outs and recommend other Tough Girl Podcast episodes. More information can be found at toughgirlchallenges.com.
Jacquetta Megarry, and I'm based in Edinburgh. I grew up in London and went to school there, but I've lived all my adult life in Scotland, variously Glasgow and Dunblane. So here I am now in Edinburgh, and my primary business is guidebooks called Rucksack Readers in a format that I developed myself, really out of frustration with the existing guidebooks and feeling that perhaps I could do something a little better. I wasn't at all sporty as a child, and I certainly wasn't into the great outdoors, more into fast cars and motorbikes and things. However, when I turned 50, a friend the 4 female friends decided that we would do something together to celebrate 200 years of womanhood. And I said to my friend Sheila, right, what are we doing? And Sheila said, we're doing the West Highland Way. And that was my very first long distance walk, but it didn't immediately lead to a guidebook. What it did was to leave me feeling very dissatisfied with the official guidebook because it turned to pulp in the rain and you couldn't use the map at all because the map was like a huge sail in a high wind. And basically that was a sense of discontent or frustration that lay dormant for about 18 months, at which time I was going up Mt Kilimanjaro. That would be for the first time. And it's really just a walk at altitude. It is challenging in some ways, but essentially altitude's a great leveler. And I found that being elderly compared with the others in the group and also listening to my body, actually I didn't have any significant trouble with altitude. So something about the experience of Kili, which I then later did more times actually for a guidebook, but the first time I did it, it just, I think, gave me some self-belief that I didn't have before, and I decided to put my money where my mouth was. So that was for me a complete career change. I've missed out the bit since university, which was basically when I turned 30, I went freelance and I was doing projects in information technology and open learning and that sort of thing. And each project was fascinating, but really didn't add up to anything terribly much. So really, I look on turning 50 as having been the beginning of a whole new career.
But especially in the mature years, and I think you sort of mentioned or alluded to it when you were climbing Kilimanjaro, that because you were more mature, and the altitude was a bit of a level. I mean, I know I've climbed Kilimanjaro quite a few years ago, and I noticed the people who sort of struggled the most were like young boys in their 20s because they were wanting to power up the mountain and go as fast as possible.
I'm laughing because it's always fit young men, particularly competitive fit young men, who go too fast. They don't listen to their bodies, and their worst mistake of all is that they don't, if they're suffering from altitude sickness, they tend not to mention it. They try to hide it. And this is actually a formula for making yourself quite unwell at altitude. It's a very clear way of becoming ill, and it's quite unnecessary. You just pace yourself and listen to your body.
Yeah, but that's it. I think women are there's almost like the ego's taken out of it, and it's that just, I'm going to listen to my body, I'm going to take it at my pace and go slowly on it. But you said that's when it started for you to build self-belief. In what way was that self-belief that came to the forefront? Because did you doubt that you'd be able to reach the top, or was it just completing it, reaching the summit? Did something shift in you?
To be honest, the first time I went up, I did the very conservative and boring route that goes up Marangu, where you stay in actual timber huts. You're not even camping on the ground. And the reason I chose that route is because I hadn't the slightest idea whether I would manage to summit, and I didn't want to be a nuisance to the group. So my primary feeling was, well, they can always leave me at Kibo Hut while they all go off on and summit, and they can pick me up on the way back down. In reality, it wasn't like that at all. The only 9 out of the 16 in our group made it to the summit. And actually, I wasn't hurrying, but I was among the first 3 to get there. And more important, I was feeling healthy. I was taking photographs. I was having an absolute ball. Because the thing about Kili is, from doing it, Sarah, you're effectively walking from the equator, the tropical rainforest, up to the summit glaciers. It's like walking from the equator to the pole. And we did it over 4 days. So it was really exciting and stimulating, breathtaking.
Yeah. I think one of the key memories for me was, it might have been at like Stella Point. I took a different route to you, and I think I took about 8 or 9 days. It definitely wasn't a fast hike up, but seeing the curvature of the earth and just being that high up was sort of awe-inspiring. But just going back to the self-belief on you for you, was it when you came down that you noticed the change, or that you decided to like reassess and actually think, I need to be doing something different, or actually that's that idea that you'd maybe been thinking about since the West Highland Way in regards to guidebooks, that now was the time to implement it? What happened in that regard?
I do think that doing something that's so completely outside your normal everyday life does trigger a sort of reevaluation of who am I and where am I going. I can't answer in any detail. I just know that to go from knowing nothing about publishing, and I really did know nothing about publishing, except, I'd been an author, but being a publisher is a completely different ball game. And I've made loads of mistakes, and it does take a lot of confidence, actually, to think that you can do something like the Inca Trail, which actually I set off on. It was the fateful 11th of September incident. The first thing that happened at the airport is they took my cameras off me and put them through the scanners. And this is before digital. So in 2001, I spent ages wondering if any of my photos would come out. So you commit a lot to doing the journey and gathering the notes and the photographs. And it's quite a big, I won't say, well, you might call it arrogant, you might call it self-confident, to think that after having done the whole thing once, you can write a book about it that others will learn from. And in fact, I did have a co-author on that book who'd done the Inca Trail many times and was very, very valuable. But he didn't travel at all. He just commented on drafts, and that was really very helpful.
See, I don't think that's arrogant at all, because I think there's lessons in everything, and it's powerful to share that knowledge. Obviously, people do it in different ways. So actually getting your perspective, because so you've been like early 50s when you were doing the Inca Trail?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So again, there'll be women who are in their 50s and who will be thinking, well, I can't possibly go and do that adventure. It's going to be too hard. It's going to be too challenging. But actually, if you can share your story and say, well, actually, this is my background. This is my level of fitness. This is the training I did, or this is how I got myself fit and prepared. This is what I struggled with. This is what I learned. This is what I took. This is what worked great for you. And then it's like with the Tough Girl podcast, it's all about sharing that information so that women can pick and choose and think, well, actually, I know that I would struggle to do it in 4 days doing X amount of miles per day, but actually I probably could do it over, I'm just, spouting things like 2 weeks, and as long as I have some support with porters, etc., and I dial in my training and stuff. So I 100% think it's valuable getting women's perspective on these challenges.
Quite often I have that argument with authors, because although I either write or co-author some of our books, many of them being external authors, and sometimes you get the kind of author who wants to suggest how long something will take, or who wants to have a 20-mile section, which frankly, if you're walking for pleasure, is too long. And I will say to them, no, we need to split this. We need to make it possible. Everyone who gets into long distance walking, like me on the West Highland Way, some stage you're doing it for the first time. So we try to break it down. We offer different itineraries so that, for example, you can, on the West Highland Way, you can do it in 5, 6, 7 or 8 days, or 10 or more. We show how to split it, but also we keep the directions really short, just bullet points, really short and punchy. And we make sure that the whole thing has the maps built in so that you've only got to carry one thing, and it's all rainproof. And quite honestly, I don't get this, Sarah. Why would anyone who's walking or cycling in Northern England, or anywhere in England, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, why would you not want the paper to be rainproof on the map? People who do maps make them rainproof or waterproof by using special material, but nobody else has done it with guidebooks, and I really don't understand why not.
I mean, I have to say, when I do use guidebooks, but what I end up doing is I like having the physical copy, but I actually just take photos of the pages that I need to cover for, say, during the day. So it's just I can grab my phone and scroll through to sort of refresh my memory, so that literally exactly that, so the guidebook won't get wet.
I presume your phone's in a waterproof case, and therefore it's the most waterproof thing you had with you. Is that right?
Well, no. So I have an iPhone. God, what I don't know, like isn't that awful? I can't remember what iPhone I have. Like maybe like an iPhone 13 or 14, and that is meant to be waterproof. I used to have it in a protective case, but the issue with the protective case I found is it wasn't good for taking photos because of the film on the back. And so I sometimes just have like a plastic bag which I have my phone in. I'm probably not the best adventurer in that regard. No, yeah, so I just have my phone out in a waterproof bag, which is kept in like my pocket. But I also like hiking in like hot places, so I try and avoid the bad weather.
I got back last weekend from hiking again the Dales Way and the Watershed Alternatives. Now, the Dales Way, I don't know if you remember last weekend, but we had Storm Amy on Friday and Saturday, so I was out in it. My iPhone's in a drop-proof, waterproof case, and it is the thing that you can use, you imagine, in rain. But sometimes, actually, if the rain's hard enough, it's more in control of the phone than you are with your fingers. So it was a problem. And what we're now doing, which is a completely new development after 25 years of doing guidebooks, what we're now starting to do is for each route, we're doing a waterproof or a rainproof map booklet, because that can live in your leg pocket, and you've got the mapping in the guidebook anyway. So if you don't want to keep getting it out, it could stay in your rucksack, maybe read it in the evenings, and you can just work from the map booklet in your pocket. And I think that's quite a practical idea for foul weather conditions.
So for me, I do a lot of my hikes on like waymark trails. So it's just I'm almost just looking for the way markers. So don't necessarily use my phone unless I'm like I just wanted to double check my GPS and where I am. But also, I suppose that would be interesting. Do you think now with people having different apps available, and maybe with like technology, that the guidebook is sort of, I don't know, like decreasing in popularity, or is it still something that people want to have and to own? Because I personally like for the research and the planning and like looking through something. I find it very helpful, especially on some of the trails I've done, like knowing where the resupply points are or things that maybe aren't as easy to find out on the app. But what are your thoughts on that?
On the way, finding a way point, I don't think there's any trail that's so well waymarked that I don't know that people have got lost on it. So I do think it's important for people to understand, take a map and a compass and have some kind of backup for if that happens to you. I mean, yes, print runs have gone down on guidebooks because we're in a world where everyone expects to get information for free and online. But as you say, if you're trying to plan a walk, all our books have the same structure. The first section is all about how to plan, how long to spend, which direction to do it in, where you'll find accommodation, all that kind of stuff. But we have a big section, which we call background, which is things like It might be history or heritage, as in, for example, on the Rob Way, which is a trail I devised myself. That is the Loch Katrine water scheme and the railways that you walk along the disused track beds of. We always have habitats and wildlife. So there's an absolute raft of information that it just makes the whole experience so much more enjoyable and interesting if you've got access to that. And whether or not you decide to get the guidebook out for the actual step-by-step walking, that's another area. But I think if people are committing a whole week to walking one route, they probably, many of them seem to feel okay about spending 15 quid on a guidebook to make that experience better.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just about having the ease of having everything in one place. And I actually had an interesting experience where I was planning. So I did the GR10 across the Pyrenees mountain range to celebrate 10 years of the Tough Girl podcast. And I did have a guidebook, but I was also a little bit pressed for time. So I was like, let's just pop this into, because I knew how to get to the start and everything, I'll get to the finish. So I popped it into ChatGPT and I was like, Chat, can you just plan out my first 2 weeks for me, which it did. So I was like, great, found the name of the town at the 2 week point, booked some accommodation, and I was like, brilliant, all sorted. And then about 4 or 5 days before I was heading off, I was just sort of looking through the numbers and the distances, and I was like, God, that's really, wow, this seems like I seem to be going really far in 2 weeks. Like what's sort of going on? So I actually got the guidebook out and I was like, okay, yeah, so stage 1, stage 2, yeah, stage 3, stage 4, all sort of working out fine. And then ChatGPT wanted me to do 7 stages in one day. And I was just like, oh my God. And I booked like a non-refundable accommodation. So in the end, you're like, okay, can I actually manage to get like 20 stages done in the time frame I give myself, which to be fair wasn't quite possible. So I ended up missing my accommodation. But I suppose it's just one of those things to actually almost, I say that to be aware of it. So even like an experienced person like me, it's still, you can still make mistakes when it comes to planning, and actually having something like that is quite, it's sort of useful.
I think that story underlines, Sarah, the unwisdom of using ChatGPT rather than a reputable guidebook. And I also think that I should mention, I'm very interested, because I used to be in information and communications technology, that was my field. I'm very interested in the relationship between a published guidebook and the website. And one of the things we provide on the website is an incredibly detailed Google Maps overlay, which you can zoom in to level 20 or whatever. I mean, you can count the sheep, you can count the stones in the cairns if you zoom in far enough. And that's why when the mapping is in our book, then it's always specially commissioned, and the photographs obviously help a lot, but with the mapping, it's specially commissioned, and we always know within the nearest 10 meters how far you go along a stage. I mean, you don't have to count your steps, but the idea of getting a stage as wrong as you describe is just unthinkable to me, because we do number one priority for the guidebooks is that we don't get people avoidably lost. I say avoidably because people will chat, particularly in towns and villages. They often miss signs because they're busy chatting, which is fine. They're enjoying their walk. And it doesn't matter if you make a mistake, as long as you learn from that mistake and don't make the same mistake again and again. So we try not to get them avoidably lost ever, but we also try and turn the book into something that will be a real souvenir of a week of your life. And that's why the very large number, 80 to 100 colour photos in each guidebook is a really important part of the book. We do obsess about photography, and we obsess about page breaks and all sorts of things.
You're actually a volunteer, and it was called the Extreme Everest Project. Would you like to share a little bit more about that role and what was involved there?
Yes, it was an interesting one, because by the time I'd been up Kilimanjaro 4 times, one of the times the route that you mentioned was Stella Point, that's Machame, and also the Rongai route, which is shortest and easiest, and also from the west. And the thing about altitude is it can strike you differently on different occasions, and individuals vary a lot. So a group from University College London, a medical team, put together this Extreme Everest project, which was financed by John Caldwell. And the project was to get healthy volunteers, I think 230 of us, deliberately. You can't ethically make them hypoxic in a hospital condition that's short of oxygen, because hospitals are there to make people better. But in the course of trekking at altitude, we were all going to be making ourselves deliberately hypoxic just by going to altitude. So we had 5 sets of tests. One was you went up to London for, the second lot were in Kathmandu, and then various points on the trail from Lukla all the way up to base camp. And this was a full battery of psychological, neurological, perceptual, on the bicycle ramp test. On the bicycle ramp, you literally had to cycle to the point where they just increase the ramp, and you've got to keep cycling, and there comes a point when you can't anymore. And of course, everyone, as you go to greater altitude, finds that the point at which you have to give up comes sooner and sooner. And what they were trying to discover was how to deal with hypoxia, and what it is that means that some people can cope fine with altitude and others not so much. There is a genetic component. Turns out I'm quite lucky with that. There are other people who are unlucky. It's in the lap of the gods. But it was a wonderful way of seeing Everest Base Camp with a fine group of people. And I was a bit bitten by the Nepal bug, which is why I went back later to do this other route that combines Gokyo Lakes and going over the Cholar Pass, and that was great.
So you react pretty well at altitude. You don't need to take any of, I can't remember the name of like the medication.
Diamox is the one that a lot of people take almost preventatively, they think. And I'm pretty much against it, because a lot of the symptoms of altitude are very easily confusable with other symptoms like dehydration and tiredness. And very often people who take Diamox, well, one of the problems is it is a bit of a diuretic, so it tends to make people wake even and oftener during the night and disrupts their sleep. It does have a role in treatment if people are suffering symptoms and can't be got down quickly enough. There are people who believe in a pill for every ill and they'll take it preventively, but I'm personally not keen on it. And I neither took it nor even had it with me. I was just into keeping well hydrated, monitoring my heart rate to a certain extent, but basically having a good time and not taking pills.
So with all of your traveling, climbing Kilimanjaro, heading to Everest Base Camp, going on walks and treks, etc., how are you maintaining like a base level of fitness? Do you have a regime that you sort of follow, or are you sort of more just go with the flow, or a bit more sort of hit and miss, or do you train specifically before you? I'm interested to know what do you do?
Right, I'm laughing because the first time before Kili, I did join a gym for the first time in my life, and I got relatively aerobically fit in relation to what you might expect of a 51 or 52-year-old woman. Basically, before the second time, I didn't train nearly as hard. And when we came to the fourth time, which was the Lemosho route, I did nothing except I slightly extended the length of the daily dog walk. I think having a couple of dogs does, having dogs does mean that you're not going to be a complete couch potato. But honestly, no training. No, I mean, my life is, I still work very full time. I think it was David Hockney who was saying recently that he assumed he would die soon, so he wanted to work every day. I'm not at all morbid. I don't think I'll die that soon, but I mean, inevitably in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And in the meantime, if I'm doing a job that I love and I think I've got better at over 25 years, I want to keep on doing it. And I should say, in relation to mistakes, that one of the points of celebrating the 25 years that we've been doing Rucksack Readers has been very explicitly, I blogged about the mistakes I made in publishing. And that piece has actually had a lot of interest on LinkedIn as a result. And I think we all ought to talk more about our mistakes. I like the fact that you talked about your chat GPT mistake, and I bet you won't do that again.
Well, I still might use it to help me plan things because it was very good, but I'll definitely dig into the detail a lot more and not just be like, "Oh, I'll just take it as carte blanche that this is what I need to this is what I need to do." Talking about, I'm definitely having more conversations with women, especially around, failure of, when things don't go to plan, because that is when generally you learn the biggest lessons. And I think when you can be open to that and know that you like, I've messed up here, I've made a mistake, this hasn't gone to plan, it just means that other women hopefully won't go ahead and make those same mistakes, basically. You've been on an incredible trip recently, which is actually when I turn 50, because me and one of my travel buddies, our plan is to go to Antarctica. And you've just, you tell us about your adventure with Antarctica. So you've been visited twice.
Yes, the first time I was very keen to go sea kayaking, which is a bit weird because I've never kayaked in my life before. So I went on a half-day training course in Edinburgh in November and practiced a sort of capsized roll to make sure I could get out of it. And of course, none of that was necessary at all. They were perfectly happy to take people who hadn't kayaked, but in the first 10 minutes of our sea kayaking experience off the Antarctic Peninsula, there's this commotion in the water about 10 meters away from me, and this huge tail fin appeared in the water. It was absolutely wonderful. It was so breathtaking. It was brilliant. Sometimes I have to pinch myself I think I'm a very ordinary person, but I have had some extraordinary experiences, and that sea kayaking was one of them. And then on the second trip, which I went a couple of years later, it was to Snow Hill Island with a smaller ship again. This is with Ocean Wide, and we went from the ship to an emperor penguin colony, which is actually, it's very unusual to be able to get to emperor penguins. And we were the first human beings that those emperor penguin chicks had seen. And we got incredibly lucky because they don't guarantee that you'll be able to even take off from the ship, let alone see emperor penguins. But the conditions were great, and we got to do it all again the second day. Helicoptered across to Snow Hill Island. Then you hike, because obviously they don't want the helicopters landing anywhere near the colony, but you hike from the helicopter landing to the colony, and you're just walking almost up to these incredible animals.
How did you cope with the cold? Like, obviously, you're wrapped up warm and everything else like this, but was that a little bit of a shock to the system, or was it all quite sort of civilized?
No, I mean, one of the things that's in my book is some clarity, both about daylight, because people always assume you'll have midnight sun when you won't. And people assume that you'll be cold. Again, you won't. Whenever you're on board ship, you're in a heated space. I wore exactly the same clothes that I wear at home, and I wasn't cold once. So there's a lot of very basic information about it. People mostly they have a rough idea where it is, the continent, but they've no idea how big it is. They don't understand how much it varies between the northern tip of the Antarctic Peninsula, which is the most that most people see. You're very unlikely to cross the Antarctic Circle unless you actually go on a cruise that's specifically designed to do that. And if you do that, you'll have very little time ashore. Obviously, when you go ashore, you're wearing a warm and waterproof jacket and waterproof trousers, but you're not cold.
Do you think your hiking has changed sort of more as you're getting into your later 70s? So either are you using different service providers, as in who can carry your pack? Are you doing it more like you're staying in B&Bs, or are you still sort of staying in a tent? How has that sort of evolved?
No, the only times I've slept in tents has been on hiking holidays abroad, and basically there's a support team who carry the tents and the sleeping gear and the cooking gear and all that stuff. I really am an unfit old lady. I just carry the bare minimum. I stay in B&Bs, and what has changed, obviously I'm slowing down a bit, and I'm carrying less deliberately as a strategy to cope with aging.
Massive congratulations, 25 years of publishing your award-winning guidebooks. And what I think is so lovely is to just look back at all the different walks and adventures and challenges, but also you can just follow your passion. So you can just be like, well, actually, I'm really interested in the Inca Trail in Peru, or actually I do want to spend more time in Africa or Asia or Europe. And you could just be like, actually, I'm just going to write a guidebook on it. Which I
That's the
think,
joy of being a
yeah,
publisher. Absolutely. It's this total freedom to make mistakes and to follow your dream. And it's just a wonderful life.
in terms of sort of making the decisions on the next sort of guidebooks or the next adventures or challenges for you.
I will need to revisit the Dales Way because Storm Amy did disrupt progress and plans. And anyway, there's these high-level watershed alternative routes that's different from the main Dales Way. So I do need to go back there. But my main project this year has been what you might call succession planning. And that is basically I've identified and I'm working closely with someone who will become the junior partner. She's female. She's 34 years old. She's incredibly bright and hardworking, and she's very, very keen on guidebook publishing. So I would say that securing the future of Rucksack Readers is now a high priority and looking good. But essentially, this has been a year of consolidation and looking after the future, because obviously I've been, well, it's not obvious, however lucky you are with your health, and I've been very lucky, at least up till now, however lucky, I've got to look at the writing on the wall. 78 is no spring chicken, and there'll come a time when I can't physically do what I'm doing now.
I love the fact that you are putting the succession planning in place. I mean, to be fair, like everyone should, everyone should have their will written, and especially if you've built up a business, the past 25 years, you want it to continue because it is adding value to so many people. And to be honest, I've actually definitely thought about, oh God, it was funny at Christmas dinner. My niece was like, how children, she's only 8 or 9, and how children can be quite open. She's like, Auntie Sarah, when you die, can I have tough girl challenges? We just sort of said really
Wonderful.
bluntly. And he's sort of like, oh, I do need to think about this more. Like I want the legacy of all of these, there's over 800 interviews available, and I want them available long after I'm gone, so that there is like this massive audio library available for women to listen to. So actually I think succession planning is a fantastic thing to do, and planning for the future is not, it's not a bad thing to get those things in place and sorted. And Jacquetta, where are you most active on social media? How can people connect with Rucksack Readers? Where are you most active? Where should they go?
We are active on Instagram and also on Facebook. Really, those would be the places to jump off to. But the thing that's really at the heart of Rucksack Readers is the website, Rucksacks, rucsacks.com.
And you've also very kindly said that you're going to put a discount code in for the listeners of the Tough Girl podcast. Would you like to share that as well?
Absolutely. What we would do is offer 20% off any of the books, all of the books. So it doesn't matter which you choose or if you want to reuse it, for a year from the date of this particular podcast. And it's simply in the form of a code, Tough Girl. And it doesn't matter if that's all lowercase or mixture or whatever. And you just, if you're on our website, you just put that in before you actually check out, and you will immediately see the 20% removed from whatever's in your basket. Simple as.
That's so kind of you. Thank you so much. I'll be putting that in the show notes as well, so that it's very simple to remember. I know all my listeners will remember that as well, but we'll put all your links into the show notes as well, so they'll all be in one place. But Jacquetta, I'd love for you to have the final words of advice for other women listening who want to go on more adventures, take on more challenges around the world. Apart from just do it, what would you like to share? And you can take that in any direction that you would like.
I'd really like to go back to the issue of mistakes, because if what's stopping you is you're afraid of getting it wrong, just remember what Henry Ford said. He said the only real mistake is the one from which we learn nothing. So I'd say get out there, make the mistakes, be sure to learn from them, and don't allow some stupid assumptions about glass ceilings to make you think there's anything improbable about a woman or a girl doing whatever they make their mind up to. If you want it badly enough, if you work hard enough at it, if you believe in yourself and prepare properly, you can do it.
Jacinta, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast. It's been amazing to speak to you, and just best of luck with your next adventure and challenges.
Thank you very much for your time and interest.
Hey, tribe, how are you doing? It's the beginning of 2026. Have you decided on your future challenges, adventures, walks, height, travel plans for the year ahead? If not, then make sure you do go and visit rucksacks.com. Go and check out all of their amazing books that they have got available, from things like the Antarctica Guide to Your Adventure, the Cleveland Way, Coast to Coast, Cumbria Way, the Dales Way, Causeway, Coastway, Dingle Way, explore Mt Kilimanjaro, explore the Inca Trail, Friends Way 1, Friends Way 2, Forced to Farn Way, the Fief Pilgrims Way, loads of amazing adventures and challenges for you to check out. Don't forget the discount code ToughGirl to get your discount on your fabulous guidebook. Now, I just want to do a shout out to Steph Cook. So I was asking members of the Tough Girl tribe just to share, things that they're proud of. So Steph shared with us that in 2025, she's had many great adventures, but the one that she's proudest of completing is called her Side to Side Challenge, which she started in 2024 by walking from Somerset to Ness Point. This has completed my walk from Land's End to Ness Point, which is the furthest eastern point of England to the furthest western point. This was a much bigger challenge than anything I had attempted before, as there wasn't a set route and involved wild camping. Listening to the Tough Girl podcast en route really helped me through. Next year, so 2026 this year, I'm planning on a few shorter trails rather than another long one, although the Southwest Coast Path is beckoning for a future year. Looking forward to more walking and camping in 2026. So Steph, massive congratulations. I followed along with your journey on your side-to-side challenge, and you did so well. Like you said, the fact that there wasn't a set route, there wasn't a set trail, it did involve wild camping. You stepped outside your comfort zone. You set yourself a massive challenge, to walk from the furthest eastern point of England to the furthest western point. And dealing with those setbacks and challenges, learning from them, getting back out there again, pushing on through and sharing the journey is so, so empowering. And I'm so proud of you for doing it, for dealing with every setback and challenge, for going back out there the following year and completing what you set out and what you started. And I'm so glad that you were able to listen to the Tough Girl podcast on your route while you're walking and get inspired and, learn those tips and tricks, which, has really helped you. So really, really well done on your challenge. And I love the fact that for next year or this year, that you're planning on a few shorter trails, which I think is a great way of doing it. One of the things that I've come to realize as well is you can't do, or certainly something I've struggled with, is doing back-to-back long trails. It's very physically and emotionally very, very taxing. So actually taking that time out to do a few little shorter trails sounds like a great, great plan. And then looking at doing like the Southwest Coast Path in future is also wonderful. So I actually as you probably know, I did the Southwest Coast Path back in, it seems ages ago now, 2024, summer of 2024. I have not finished the vlogs, but they are going to be coming out this year. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the Tough Girl YouTube channel and watch out for those vlogs. I will get on top of my editing, but as you can imagine, it is very, very time consuming. But yeah, I suppose just be inspired by Steph and what she shared, and just think about, what's your next adventure? What's your next challenge? What's the next walk that you're going to be taking on? Make it personal to you. Do what inspires you. Do what motivates you. If there's a particular trail that you're interested in walking, do your research, buy the guidebooks, check out Rucksack Readers, figure out what routes can you fit in? How much time do you have available? What's realistic for the amount of miles that you can walk in a day carrying a heavy pack? Don't compare yourself to other people who are maybe doing massive distances, especially if they're doing big trails, because sometimes it's not realistic. And the reason I say that is once you're hiking for a while, you pick up like a hiker speed, or a hiker, not speed, your body adapts so that actually walking bigger distances actually becomes a lot easier. And if you can maintain that level of fitness, then doing shorter trails becomes much easier. But if you're not used to doing those big type of distances, it really can push you and challenge you on your body. So no comparisons allowed. Do the walks which are suitable for you. Check out the routes which are close to home. There must be some really nice maybe day walks you can take on, or a few little multi-day hikes. Stay at a nice B&B, stay at a campsite, wild camp. These are all options that you have available to you. So Steph, thank you again for sharing. Really appreciate it, and best of luck with all your hikes this year. I'd love to know what you're up to. What are your plans for 2026? Send me an email, sarah@toughgirlchallenges.com. Tag me on Instagram, send me a DM at toughgirlchallenges. It's always great to be inspired by what the listeners are up to, what your future challenges and goals are going to be. Thank you so much for all your support. If you'd like to support the work that I do, then please visit Patreon, patreon.com/toughgirlpodcast. And all that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.